All right, another Sunday night live. Thank you, everybody, for waiting. I know that this was a little bit more delayed than usual, but I'm sure that the chat section has a lot of fun comments built up already. I turned this on. There's already 64 of you in here. You all want to hear about Trent Williams and potentially even George Kittle. We also have word from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN that George Kittle might eventually want a new contract. And I think Fowler slipped in there that it might even be this offseason that he wants a new one. But the Trent Williams rumor was about Trent wanting a contract either this offseason, I think, or potentially next offseason. They didn't put the specific dates on it, but the word on the street is that he'd be interested in a new contract at some point here moving into the future. And I think the knee-jerk reaction from a lot of people online, especially people who don't understand contract mechanics or the 49ers salary cap, was, oh my God, how are the 49ers going to be able to afford this? This is a huge problem. But no, this is actually really good news for the 49ers, especially on the Trent Williams front, because if Trent Williams wants a new contract, that means that Trent Williams isn't thinking about retiring yet. That means that Trent Williams is going to put in at least 2 or 3 more years. And if that's the case, then the 49ers hold on to one of the best tackles in the game, maybe the best left tackle in the game for a longer time. That's always a good thing. But on top of that, if the 49ers do pay him a new contract, that will certainly mean added guarantees, because Trent Williams does not have guarantees in the remainder of his contract right now. I could put this on display for you. You could see this on Over the Cap. 2024 is where we're at. Guaranteed salary, 0. They paid him a big signing bonus up front. They haven't restructured his deal yet. So 2023 through 2026 are essentially team option years. And if the 49ers convert Trent Williams' existing salary to guarantees in a potential extension or a potential new deal, that means they're going to be able to spread his cap hits out amongst future years, maybe even future void years, and actually lower his salary cap hits in the now when they have to worry about a Brandon Aiyuk payment, or when they have to worry about a Brock Purdy payment and other payments next season. So this is what the 49ers did with Christian McCaffrey. And I wrote this article up on The Athletic. It came out just a couple days ago. I think that I really tried to illustrate the financial dynamics and the win-win situation of a Christian McCaffrey extension for the 49ers. This is the accordion structure that San Francisco used. That is 3 different bonuses. We call this a triple bonus structure. They took the money that had already been slotted for Christian McCaffrey for the next 2 years, but was not guaranteed. That was $24 million. And they converted that money into guaranteed money. They also added years onto Christian McCaffrey's deal to gain team control over 2026 and 2027. Never a bad idea to extend a Hall of Fame caliber player, especially if the money in those later years is not guaranteed. But the money that is guaranteed doesn't hit the cap all at once. It hits the cap in a prorated fashion. So the signing bonus over 5 years starting in 2024. The first option bonus over 5 years starting in 2025. The second option bonus over 5 years starting in 2026. You can see here it's like this accordion, a staggered accordion of cap hits that actually lowered the Christian McCaffrey's overall cap hit from about 14 million to 6.7 million this year, and from about 14 million to about 9.8 million in 2025. So San Francisco can theoretically do the same thing for Trent Williams as far as structure goes, if and when that time does come. Now, Trent is going to have to be absolutely sure that he doesn't just want to retire after this season, if this is something that the 49ers are going to do. And I don't know if Trent is sure about that. Based on Jeremy Fowler's whispers or rumblings or whatever he called it, he said that it was something that was possible, but he said that it's something that isn't directly and certainly in stone right now. And I think that the primary variable here is that Trent Williams is 36. He might not be certain how he'll feel after this season, the 2024 season, entering his age 37 season, but say that he's feeling great during his age 36 season and says, hey, I may want to stretch this out for a couple years beyond that into 37 and 38, and he's under contract through age 38 in 2026. I think that Trent Williams would be very interested in seeing what Christian McCaffrey saw, and that is some guarantees added to the final 2 years of his deal. Now, Jeremy Fowler also mentioned that George Kittle could be in a similar boat. If we look at George Kittle's contract, same sort of deal, right? 2 years left on the contract, just like Christian McCaffrey's was before he signed his extension, and just like Trent Williams' deal will be after this season, when I think an extension and some guarantees would make most sense. Most players will get, especially good ones, they won't reach the lame duck year of their deal. The lame duck year for Trent Williams would be 2026, the final year of the contract down here. You don't reach that lame duck deal because a team wants to extend you before then. They want to figure out what to do before then, so they're not making you pay on some kind of, not making you play on what is a de facto contract year. But really, really good players might even get a new contract done with 2 years left on the deal, because especially in this day and age, it could benefit the football team just as much as it benefits the player. And for that, I show you Christian McCaffrey's contract. He got his redone 2 years before the end of it, and the 49ers were able to stretch his cap hits out into the future. Now, this is my big salary cap piece. I explain that the 49ers are surfing the wave of a rising salary cap. The only way that this sort of technique and this sort of strategy works is because the salary cap is rising, because NFL revenue is rising year after year. So you are betting on revenue to continue rising. That's how you can fit larger cap hits in the future, because every dollar that you spend against the cap now is going to be a smaller percentage of the cap than a dollar that you spend against the cap in 2025 and 2026 if it does continue rising. So you're okay with pushing that money into the future because it's going to account for a smaller percentage of the cap. It's like a zero interest loan. There is no penalty for pushing money into the future, especially if you consider the fact that you expected to pay Christian McCaffrey over 2024 and 2025 anyway. Well, just guarantee that money. And if he comes through and delivers the way that you expect him to, and we're expecting to pay anyway, the money that you're going to be paying him, he's happier because it comes sooner in the form of a signing bonus, and you're happier because you're able to stiff arm the cap hits and keep them further into the future in years where the cap is projected to be higher. So just like the 49ers did that with Christian McCaffrey, they should be able to do that with Trent Williams. Now, the spot where you might get burned here is if Trent Williams does decide to retire after this season. That's why I don't think that this is something that has full running legs yet. This is something that's being whispered. This is something that Jeremy Fowler reported today, but I think it would have to be a little bit more certain that Trent Williams is going to play beyond 2024 for the 49ers to offer some guarantees and an extension that would stave some of the cap hits later down the road. But guaranteed money is good. Guaranteed money is something that cash-rich teams can afford to pay to stay under the salary cap. And if the salary cap is rising, cash-rich teams don't mind pushing cap hits further into the future. The same thing could be probably said about George Kittle. With Kittle, yes, he's not on the right side of 30 anymore, but he's just coming off a 1,000-yard season. That's rare for a tight end. It was a third 1,000-yard season, his first since his earlier years of his career. So he's a featured part of the 49ers pass game. He's obviously a mauling run blocker. I mean, he's a really, really good all-around player. Travis Kelce has shown in Kansas City, he's significantly older than George Kittle. He has shown that there is potential longevity at that tight end position. And I think that George Kittle delivering a 1,000-yard season, as we saw at age 30 this past year, has also shown that there's real longevity potential here at the tight end position. So if the 49ers do believe that he could play at this level to 34, 35, heck yes, an extension would make sense. If they're going to be betting on that, then they want to kick those cap hits down the road. It's a zero interest loan. They free up money now. They keep their core happy, and they keep the culture of the building intact moving forward. So do not let anybody tell you that Trent Williams wanting a new contract would be bad for San Francisco. The primary takeaway from that would be that Trent Williams wants to continue playing, which is good news for any team that Trent Williams is on. This is a Hall of Fame player. I think George Kittle's on a Hall of Fame trajectory as well. So anytime Hall of Fame players are interested in sticking around, you listen, especially Hall of Fame players who are still at the top of their games. And Trent Williams was graded as the top tackle in football this past year. He's been graded as the top guy in football ever since he joined the 49ers. So you could probably disregard the age until those grades start eroding. George Kittle, he's been one of the best or the best in football. That Kelsey Kittle debate, I think, is a little bit of a waste of time. I think they're asked to do two very, very different things. But in the case of both Williams and Kittle, and obviously in the case of Christian McCaffrey a few days ago, you had a player who was worth extending, worth taking that bet on, because it's not much of a bet if he's going to continue to produce at a high level. And the 49ers have every belief that they will see that from Christian McCaffrey, and they can yield the win-win of the lower cap hits now and the surfing of the cap wave with that zero interest loan into the future. I can always show you my flow control salary cap spreadsheet. This is the 2024 books, 23.7 million. Trent Williams right now is counting 31.6 million against the books. I don't think that they were going to get anything done this offseason with Trent. It wouldn't be until next offseason when the 49ers have 22.3 million in salary cap space. They're going to carry over some unused 2024 room, obviously. If they sign Brandon Aiyuk this offseason, the number can even lower here so they can carry over more space. I don't know how much they'll need in the near term to fill out a 2025 roster, especially with the massive Brock Purdy expenditure looming. But it would help probably to lower Trent Williams' $34.1 million cap hit in 2025, which is something that an extension could do. An extension for George Kittle as well could lower his $22.1 million cap hit in 2025. So the 49ers have so many different avenues here through which to kick the can down the road financially. And with there not really being a penalty for kicking the can down the road financially, with that being a zero interest proposition, you can expect them to move forward with the same strategy. All right, it's a beautiful Sunday night. I think we're ready for a 49ers Q&A. All of this is just, I don't know if it's speculation, but that I think Jeremy Fowler said rumblings about Kittle potentially wanting a new deal, Trent Williams potentially wanting a new deal. Well, that would be great news for the 49ers, especially on the Williams front, because that would mean that he's trying to continue playing. And if that is the case, well, then they could gain a little bit more control over that contract. Remember, you can control a signing bonus and guaranteed option bonuses a whole heck of a lot more than you could control paragraph 5 base salary. You can push it into the future. You can stretch it out like an accordion, like the 49ers did with Christian McCaffrey's deal, as I illustrated right here. So there's a lot of salary cap illiteracy out there. People starting to talk about the cap and they think, oh, these expenditures are going to sink the 49ers, this. They don't understand that the cap is increasing. They don't understand that NFL has a mechanism that favors cash-rich teams who give out big bonuses. They don't understand that the 49ers have been surfing this wave for years. San Francisco's been doing a lot of front-end work as well to stay under the salary cap, the front-end work being the Eric Armstead move. They saw that that was not cost-efficient for them, so they went ahead and offered the pay cut that Eric Armstead refused. They slashed Kyle Juszczyk's salary. He accepted the pay cut. All those things on the front end add up so the 49ers can turn around and fit money being prorated forward into the future on the back end. And they also want to be able to sign their B-listers to fill out the roster in any given year. And that is going to be a challenge in 2025, but I think it's a challenge that the 49ers are really equipped to handle. Right now, they've got 31 players under contract, and they've got $22.6 million in 53-man salary cap room. So you're going to have to slash some big costs this year. Who knows what the future of Deebo Samuel is going to be. I think the 49ers have left themselves with really good option power over the course of the next season, whether it be re-signing Brandon Aiyuk to a long-term extension, then letting Deebo Samuel play out 1 or 2 years before you decide what to do with him. They obviously, Brock Purdy is in line for the big contract. The 49ers have many forks in the road that they are approaching, and I think that they have left themselves with optionality and adaptability at each one, kind of like how they play on the field, right? They love the adaptability there. They want the adaptability financially as well. Okay, time for the 49ers Q&A. Let's go. Yes, there is a lot of salary cap illiteracy out there. Please explain the 5th-year salary and contract. If he gets are you talking about Brandon Aiyuk? Oh, for Aiyuk. So you're saying if Aiyuk gets a deal done with will his cap stay at 14 million this year? No, right now he's set to make 14.1 million. If he gets a new contract done, they can lower his cap hit to about, even if it's a really big deal, to about 8 million. That's what they did with Nick Bosa last year. Usually just tear up the 5th-year option and you give him a new contract. So new signing bonus, new option bonuses down the road. And you gain control over the salary cap by giving out a bigger new deal, because you can push those hits into the future. And again, the salary cap is rising. It just rose $30.4 million. Why not take advantage of the fact that it's rising? Why not spend a bigger percentage of your money in the future when the cap is larger? Push that out into the time when you can afford it. You can surf that wave indefinitely, really, if you're the 49ers. And given the international revenue that's coming in for the NFL, that's obviously still largely untapped too. Given the whole Taylor Swift effect, given the fact that all these streaming deals are kicking in, you can bet on the salary cap to continue increasing precipitously if you are the 49ers. If Brandon Aiyuk gets a new contract, yes, he will get more. He will get more than 14 million this year, because they're going to give him a big signing bonus. I would think at least 30 million, right? But it won't count against the 49ers cap, not all of it. Only a fifth of the signing bonus would count against the cap, because you would prorate it. You would stretch it out like an accordion, like this. You see this? Christian McCaffrey's deal, the signing bonus stretched out over 5 years, option bonus stretched out over 5. So that's why I say it's a win-win for cash-rich teams, because the player can get his money now, but the team doesn't face the full brunt of the cap hit. They don't face 80% of it. They only take on 20% of it in the now. So you can lower Brandon Aiyuk's cap hit from 14 million to 8 million approximately, all while paying him this offseason. The problem is, the obstacle to overcome is that Brandon Aiyuk actually has to agree to a deal, right? So the 49ers and Aiyuk have to reach a middle ground of what they think is fair compensation. Because yes, you can structure deals and you can play the cap tricks all that you want, but the overall compensation has to be in a spot that the team can afford. Because if you start giving out deals that are too big, something like Minnesota's deal for Justin Jefferson is a good example. That's when that sink is going to overflow. That's when you can hit cap hell. But if you negotiate these deals wisely and you keep them at a certain budget, you can actually continue surfing that wave of the rising salary cap. Is this cap tactic used league-wide, or other GMs behind? I think the 49ers are definitely ahead of the rest of the league. One team that's tried to use the restructuring tactic is the New Orleans Saints. But again, it's like, I'll go back to the sink theory. There's a sink every single season. There's the 2024 sink, 2025, 2026. Expenditures are the water flowing into the faucet, and then you let water out through the drain, and you let it into future years through the restructuring, through the amortization of these signing bonuses and converting money from base salary to guaranteed money to the signing bonus that in turn looks like this against the cap. That's called flow control, right? So you have the sink starting to get close to overflowing in 2024. You restructure contracts, you redo deals, you offer extensions to Christian McCaffrey, you execute those, and there's flow control because water starts to flow into future years for the cap hit. In Christian McCaffrey's case, the cap hit in 2024 is 6.7 million. It balloons up to 27.5 million in 2027. That's how the 49ers have executed the flow control. I think that the Saints, they've tried some flow control, but they haven't been as deft with it as the 49ers. And they've gotten to a point where their individual years, we've seen it in 2022, 2023 here, even in 2024, they've been overflowing in individual years, and they've had to cut players they haven't want to cut, and they've had to maneuver in ways that haven't exactly been optimal. So the flow control has not been what they have needed to field the best possible football team. That is the definition of cap hell. We saw the Rams in cap hell a couple years ago. So far, the 49ers have not even approached cap hell. So far, that they've surfed this wave very, very efficiently. So I think that they are ahead of the curve as far as this goes. Something that is really interesting is the triple option bonus that they used for Christian McCaffrey. I wrote in this article up on The Athletic that when they do Purdy's deal next year, if it's $60 million a year, if it's a mega deal, we may see the 49ers be the first team to ever employ the quadruple option bonus to keep the cap hit staved off into the future. Now, are other teams doing this and trying some of these techniques? Of course, but it's not just about the individual technique. It's about the combination of all the salaries and all the signing bonuses and all the cap hits and surfing the wave, applying the correct flow control from year to year to make sure that you can continue balancing the books, to make sure that you could stay out of cap hell. It is walking a fine line that I think the 49ers are doing more efficiently than other teams. Chuck says Detroit is doing great with their cap as well. I'm sure they're doing fine too, but they haven't been good nearly as long as the 49ers. San Francisco has been able to stay one of the top teams in the NFL since 2019. Even that COVID year, 2020, they were top 10 DVOA. They went 6-10. They were so injured, obviously, that nothing came to fruition from that season. But in 2021, they were in the NFC Championship game. Same thing in 22, 2023, 49ers back to the Super Bowl. So they've been a top-tier team for 5 seasons, right? And that's really hard to do in the NFL. And they're still doing it. And I think they're projected to be a top-tier team talent-wise here, continuing into a 6th season in 2024. So Detroit has not shown that kind of longevity yet. And that's why I think the 49ers have been exceptional. The Eagles are also one of the teams that follows a similar strategy as the 49ers. Yes, we saw a big, I think it was a triple bonus structure for Jalen Hurts and his big deal. Although Philadelphia did start to tumble a bit last year. You know, it was really interesting to me that defense wasn't nearly as good as the one that won the NFC Championship game against the 49ers in 2022. So we'll see what kind of longevity Philadelphia is able to deliver, because this is a big inflection point season coming up for them. So Parag Marathe is at the top of the 49ers power structure here, but they also have Brian Hampton and Jeff Diamond running the salary cap. So they've got 3 guys, Parag Marathe, Brian Hampton, Jeff Diamond in the 49ers building that have been doing a really, really good job with this. Well, this is exactly what I was talking about with Trent Williams. Maybe you just logged on right now. How long would the 49ers extend Trent Williams? Isn't he planning on retiring soon? We don't know and maybe Trent doesn't even know. So if they do say that this season goes well and he's like, I still have a lot in the tank and I still want to play 1 or 2 more years for sure, you don't necessarily have to extend him, but you could start guaranteeing some of his salary. And that means that you would be able to push his cap hits further into the future through some prorations and maybe tack on a year to the end of the deal. I don't know exactly what it would look like. It would have to be a mutually agreed upon term that the 49ers and Trent Williams both find beneficial. There's a reason this is just in its preliminary rumbling stage right now. So let's not look too far into it, but let's establish that there is a scenario here that is a win-win for both the 49ers and Trent Williams if things proceed in a certain direction. Let's get to 80K. We're not far. We definitely aren't far. I think we're almost at 75K. So yeah, hit that subscribe button, as Eric Gomes says. No, the Trent Williams situation has nothing to do with Brandon Aiyuk. This is all larger picture stuff. They have enough money to sign Aiyuk right now to a huge deal if they wanted to, but that could constrain them in the future. They have to find the happy zone for Brandon Aiyuk. They have to find the sweet spot, something that's fair compensation, but obviously not over the top. I think Minnesota awarded Justin Jefferson an over the top deal. I agree that I was expecting Justin Jefferson to be paid the best out of any receiver out there, but I didn't expect him to blast the market by 70%. So right now with Brandon Aiyuk, the 49ers want to find fair middle ground between both parties so they can keep their whole flow control, sync theory, everything. They can keep that in order and sustainable moving forward. Exactly. If the 49ers win the whole thing, Trent Williams doesn't know based on the physical aspect whether or not he'd run it back or retire, which is why I think this is probably a holding pattern thing. You don't want to offer and sign the extension with guaranteed money now, then win the Super Bowl and then have that be a blunder as far as the contract goes, because you all of a sudden would owe Trent Williams money on the cap that you hadn't owed him previously. If you look at Trent's contract as it currently stands, there's nothing guaranteed. So if he retires right now, the 49ers wouldn't owe him anything in 2024. If he retired after 2024, they wouldn't owe him anything in 2025. They wouldn't owe him anything in 2026 if he retired before that season. So you would only, yes, you can push money into the future if you converted some of that base salary to guarantees. But if he's going to retire after one of these seasons, you don't want to do that, because that would only hurt you. That would only accelerate and hit the cap. And that'd be money hitting the cap that wouldn't have otherwise hit the cap, because none of this is guaranteed. So if he retires, he's not getting the non-guaranteed money. So they have to find middle ground with Trent Williams. And right now it might be too soon to find that middle ground if Trent is not exactly sure of his future. Trent did say a month ago that he plans to play until 40. And if that is the case, this deal right here, he's age 38 in 2026. So he can plan to play until he's 40, but he needs to be sure that he's going to play until he's 40 for the 49ers to entertain an actual extension, actual guarantees. So once that's certain, wouldn't be surprised to see something get done. And it could help both sides of this equation. Obviously, Trent Williams, new money, and the 49ers with more cap flexibility. How did Jarrett Kingston look in OTAs? Well, I think he looked very, very athletic. That's all I can really tell, because they didn't have pads on. We'll see how well he handles the strength aspect of the game, but he tested so well. He played a little bit of tackle in OTAs, and mainly he's going to be at guard. I think they just had a body shortage at tackle. Obviously, Trent Williams did not participate in OTAs. So we'll see how Kingston does, but I would expect him to be competing at guard come training camp. We'll see. If Trent plays his contract out, that's through age 38 in the 2026 season. And even then, if he's planning to play the whole contract out, even then the 49ers can rework the final couple of years of the deal to give him a little bit more in terms of guaranteed money and help out their cap situation. So both sides can win here even without a technical extension. There can still be a new contract that's not technically an extension, because he's still under contract for 3 more seasons. It's hard to believe that we're halfway through this for Trent Williams. 21, 22, and 2023. Andrew says the 49ers are going to extend all these guys. Jed wants to win the 2026 Super Bowl at Levi's, which would be the final year of Trent Williams' contract. Wouldn't that be something for the 49ers? Hey, if these guys continue playing at a really high level, there's no reason not to do this. I'll repeat myself. The cap is increasing every single year. So this is the 49ers' money. They can do what they want with it. They're not making themselves less competitive if the cap is increasing and they're taking out a zero-interest loan by pushing payments into the future. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. They've been doing it better than any other team in the league. This is a good point. If Whitworth played until 40, Invader 49er says, I know that Trent Williams can. We have a question whether realistic right tackle upgrades now or by the deadline. I don't know if there are too many realistic right tackle upgrades. I think the most realistic upgrade at right tackle is Colton McKivitz upping his game in his second full year starting. And I think that's a very realistic proposition. As far as the tackle position goes, I mean, it's so hard to find ready-made talents that are quick enough, big enough to play at that position, especially if you're not drafting high in the first round. So there wouldn't have been a surefire prospect for that, not even close to it, in the draft where the 49ers were picking. And then teams aren't just going to let go of starting tackles in the NFL. Those guys are valuable commodities. So the most realistic right tackle upgrade now or before the deadline is for Colton McKivitz to work into the position and improve in year 2. If you're on right now, you can go ahead and smash that like button. 49ers Sports Talk, who is also here in Nashville, I'm in Nashville right now, says that Dominick Puni has all-pro potential, and he tells us to quote him on it. So we'll quote him. Dominick Puni has all-pro potential. I've got a piece coming out on Dominick Puni soon. That's going to be dropping on The Athletic, so go ahead and be ready for that. Mark says the 49ers will get their A-listers extended. They are a cash-rich team. History shall repeat itself. You know, what I love about all this is that this talk complements our article from this week so perfectly. Maybe Mike can toss it into the description again. I'm going to copy and paste it. Send it to you, Mike. How the 49ers paid Christian McCaffrey and still have room for the Brandon Aiyuk and Brock Purdy deals. They are surfing this salary cap wave through the guaranteed money, through the fact they're a cash-rich team. It's allowed them to have room to do more work. And hell, I wrote about the Brandon Aiyuk and Brock Purdy deals. Why stop there? Why not talk about Trent Williams? Why not talk about George Kittle? Why not talk about all these guys that are performing? If you can find cost efficiency in an extension, the rules are set up through the salary cap and through prorations, through signing bonuses. The rules are set up to reward cash-rich teams like the 49ers. A lot of people think that Trent Williams is going to play out his contract. This is interesting in the comment section. There's always rumors after every single season he's going to retire that are not rooted in any sort of truth. It's embarrassing at this point. So many places just want to make up news or pick up the tiniest rumor and completely blow it out of proportion. But I'll be honest, everything that I've gotten out of Trent Williams, I talked to him quite a bit actually during the season over at his locker, or his 3 lockers. He's got 3 next to each other there. He's got his own little fiefdom in that middle island of the locker room. But it's right by the basketball hoop, too. It's a good location for Trent Williams. They also have a little shield now, so rebounds don't bounce into his territory near his locker. But every single time that I talk to Trent, he loves being in that locker room. He feels that the 49ers have given him a fountain of youth coming over from Washington. He really enjoys playing in Kyle Shanahan's system. He truly believes in Brock Purdy. I think if the 49ers didn't have the MVP caliber quarterback that they have, maybe Trent Williams would look at this a little bit differently. But the fact that they've got a guy like Brock Purdy that he's protecting that can lead them to the promised land, that's encouraging Trent to stay at it, keep chopping wood. I think he wants that Pro Bowl record. He might want that All-Pro record. I mean, he has so many of those awards under his belt so far. And obviously, he also wants the Super Bowl. And then from the 49ers point of view, you talk about Jed York, 2026 Super Bowl, 2025 season at Levi's Stadium. Well, that's a good reason to try to convince guys to stick around as well. Other people have time that needs to be filled on their shows. They make stuff up from thin air. I've noticed that. And that's one thing I'm proud that we don't do. That's what makes us the best, right? We sit here and we talk about substance. We actually talk about contractual details because this is the strategy that allows us to be correct about what the 49ers will do. This is the kind of stuff that we have to break down. So we're not just filling time. It's not just hot air. It's not easy to do. You have to know this stuff like the back of your hand, but hopefully you guys are studying up on the cap and using some of these videos as a resource to just learn more. How did Logan Thomas look in OTAs, and what do you think about it? Well, I think they were really working with Logan on his combo blocking and his blocking basics. It's a transition to play tight end for the 49ers. They ask a whole heck of a lot of you in the run game. There's a section of practice that the 49ers have where the tight ends work with the tackles. And it's a big deal working with the tackles because the offensive tackles are, those guys are block first guys, obviously. They're not going out for pass patterns unless it's some kind of trick play. And when that happens, and I'm going to play some of this for you, we'll find some of this Logan Thomas stuff. There's Trent Williams, by the way. I'm going to fast forward through Trent Williams and Nick Bosa talking. This is the offensive linemen working together. Back to Big Trent and Nick. Here we have the tight ends working. When the tight ends do work, and Logan Thomas is 48, so you'll see him in a second. When the tight ends do have to work with the tackles, it's very, very blocking intensive. And that's new for Logan Thomas. It's not something that he was doing in Washington where he caught those 55 passes last year. So you see Brian Fleury, the 49ers tight ends coach, working very individually with Logan Thomas, giving him in-depth instruction. And this is the kind of stuff that Logan's going to need to be the tight end too for the 49ers. We know he can catch the ball. We know he can run routes. We know that he's a big target that's going to work well with Brock Purdy at 6'6 plus. But he also has to be able to sell the run blocking and execute the run blocking. And that is working in tandem with the tackles. And that's why he's getting that extra attention from Brian Fleury. Remember, Brian Fleury was a college quarterback. So was Logan Thomas. Fleury at Towson, Logan Thomas at Virginia Tech. All right. I am ready for more questions. Let's go. I wrote about this today. This is the other day. The question is, how has the safety room looked? And do you think the team is leaning toward bringing in a veteran before the season starts? So here that's back to the Mason Pline tight end video. All right, here we go. Talanoa Hufanga has gleaned key insights watching practice with John Lynch as Hufanga continues the rehab. So I talked about this. Rayshon Jenkins, they offered him a contract. According to Rayshon Jenkins, he signed with the Seahawks. He preferred Washington State Texas over California's. Then there was Julian Blackmon, re-signed with the Colts. 49ers hosted him. I don't know if they offered him a contract, but they did host him. So at a certain point in time this offseason, San Francisco was very, very interested in signing a veteran safety to supplement the room. Because this guy up on your screen, Talanoa Hufanga, we didn't know what his recovery timeline exactly was. I think they're a lot more precise with that now. I think they're shooting for week 1, maybe not back at practice until a little bit later in training camp, but they want him back out on the field week 1. They've also drafted Malik Mustafa at safety. So the 49ers have made a couple moves at safety to where they may not be in as big of a rush to sign another safety, but that market has moved slowly. I get it. Justin Simmons is still out there. Jamal Adams is still out there. I know that name is toxic. People aren't too excited about Jamal Adams still being a free agent. But the 49ers, if they so choose, they could still add a safety. Tashawn Gibson might still decide to play. Could be a nice backstop for San Francisco. So the answer to your question is I'm not sure, but I do know that at one point they were very interested in adding a safety. But we do know that things are fluid in the NFL. Stuff changes, right? The truth of 3 months ago is not necessarily the truth right now. Biggest impressions of the 49ers deep cornerback room. Well, that it's really deep, and I think that Isaac Yiadom is going to be he's going to be a hell of a player at outside corner. I've watched his tape from New Orleans last year, and you could see why the 49ers were so excited to sign him. He was damn good. 13 or 14 pass breakups over only about half a season. Logan Thomas was not just a college QB. He's the Virginia Tech all-time career passing leader with 9,000 plus yards. And you know what? The 49ers now have 2 ex-Virginia Tech quarterbacks in their building. They've got Logan Thomas. They got Nick Sorensen. Nick Sorensen, the 49ers defensive coordinator, played QB at Virginia Tech before Michael Vick. And Michael Vick followed Nick Sorensen. They converted Nick to safety at Virginia Tech. So Logan Thomas, QB for the Hokies, converted to tight end, and that wasn't until the NFL. Nick Sorensen converted to safety, and then he became a defensive coordinator. My early impressions with Sorensen, and I thought his second presser, he was a lot more talkative and a lot more confident, a lot more open than his first press conference. I think that makes total sense. He's growing into the public facing aspect of the role. That's all that we can really say right now. Is it accurate to say the 49ers have the best roster with the most cap space? Well, it's accurate to say they have the best roster. I don't think you'll find many NFL personnel people that will argue with you on that point. They don't have the most cap space. They have quite a bit of it in 2024, but they're between 5 and 10 in terms of cap space this season. D2 doesn't see the 49ers run defense greatly improved. I think that some of their biggest problems last year were schematic, which is why they fired Steve Wilks. I also think that they have been missing a true run plugging nose tackle type ever since DJ Jones left. Can Kalia Davis step into that role? Can Evan Anderson become that guy, undrafted free agent out of Florida Atlantic? Can Shaquille Brown, free agent that they picked up, formerly of the Tennessee Titans, step into that role? If one of those three guys can break into the rotation, the 49ers will be significantly different personnel-wise against the run up front. Also, the edge opposite Bosa needs to be better. Chase Young got washed out way too many times last year. I think losing Sansom Ebukam was tough for San Francisco a couple seasons ago. So if you could get better edge play and better nose tackle play, the personnel's better, but I think the schematics, those can improve the most. You can dedicate more from the secondary and from the linebacker level to the run. I don't think that Steve Wilks has ever coordinated a run defense that was geared toward stopping that run. And I think that was one of the major philosophical differences that he had between what he had done and what the 49ers really wanted. And obviously that pairing only lasted 1 year. I think Nugent can make the roster. I'm just not ready to grade offensive linemen. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can evaluate offensive linemen after watching them for 2 weeks with shorts on, and neither are the 49ers. But Drake Nugent was an all Big Ten center who was on a 15-0 national championship team. You better believe he's got potential. And a lot of centers cerebral too, so I wouldn't even be worried about his perceived lack of height. I just want to know if he can handle the mental part of being a center, because that's what's going to determine whether or not he can make the 49ers roster. Which defensive rookie will get the most playing time this year? I would say probably Malik Mustafa. I think it's not going to be easy for Renardo Green to see a lot of time, given how deep that cornerback room is, unless there are injuries. But I think with Mustafa, you could plug him in at so many places, even as a third linebacker, some kind of bigger nickel, obviously at safety, high or low safety. That's exciting. I mean, he played all over the field for Wake Forest in what they called the Panther package. And I think that adaptability is going to lead to some early playing time for the 49ers. He's also physically ready to go. If you shake his hand, you stand next to him, he literally looks like a ball of muscle. So I think this guy, he's ready to port his game to the NFL level. I think that all teams need to always evolve every single season defensively and offensively. So I think this is a good point, but I think this applies in general across the NFL. You always want to keep a philosophy that's good. The 49ers obviously have one, but the league is a copycat league. It's also a chess match league. You always have to have a move and a counter move. You have to be ready to counteract what teams are going to bring you. And when you're one of the top teams in the league, year in and year out, you're going to get the best shot from everybody else. So evolution is constantly necessary. That's why the 49ers always seem to try to hire innovative coaches on the offensive side of the ball to bring in their new ideas. And that's what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. Brandon Staley in there. Nick Sorensen is obviously an in-house hire, but Brandon Staley comes in from outside the box to try to evolve the defense. Drake Jackson is still unavailable right now. I don't know if he's going to start the season on PUP, but it certainly seems that way based on some of the rehab exercises that he's been showing following that knee surgery. Mark is excited about both young linebackers, Jalen Graham and D. Winters. I can tell you that Fred Warner straight up said that D is having the best training camp of any 49er so far. And I don't know if he just meant the linebackers, but he said everybody on the team. Even if it's just the linebackers, Look out for D. Winters. He may be in the mix to win that third linebacker spot. All right, this has been fun. Hopefully I explained well that Trent Williams potentially wanting a new deal would be great for the 49ers. You can win-win in a league where guaranteed money actually allows you to control it better against the cap. 49ers can gain cap space in the near term. Trent Williams can pick up some more money, and it's money that would be owed to him anyway. You're just guaranteeing it and ensuring that Trent Williams, the big man at left tackle, is happy. All right, everybody, we'll talk to you soon. By the way, with the Williams thing, think Christian McCaffrey. That was a win-win for the 49ers. Think Juwan Jennings. That was a win-win for the 49ers. They may be able to get one with Trent Williams and maybe even George Kittle as well. So we'll see how this progresses. But the rumblings today, I don't think people fully understood the financial implications behind them. This video was meant to explain them. So hit the like button, hit the sub button, and we'll talk to you very soon.